Hey guys, this video today marks the start of a series of videos we're doing with DePIN project founders. And we're starting with an absolute belter. This one is with Fredrik, the CEO and co-founder of SRCFUL. SRCFUL is a renewable energy DePIN, specifically in the solar energy field. So a super interesting one if you have solar panels at home. If you don't, stick around anyway, there's going to be a lot of very useful information. This project could indeed be a really good token investment opportunity in the months to come, purely because they are still in the beta phase, yet to launch the token. And they are also on the cusp of joining the Helium ecosystem, which is quite a massive deal. While it's not certain, there's a good chance they will become one of the newest Helium subdaos, which with it brings a lot of traction off the bat, a lot of attention, and so could be a great opportunity. As ever, none of this is financial advice and it's for informational purposes only, so do your own research. But I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Fredrik as much as I did.
You're ready? Should we jump straight into it?
Yes, let's do it.
Awesome. So Fredrik, thank you so much for coming onto the channel today. I've been really excited about this call since we set it up. We are, of course, going to be talking about SRCFUL, what it is that you guys are doing over at SRCFUL, how our viewers can get involved. I guess before we start, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, actually, but what can viewers hope to take away from this conversation?
I think one of the takeaways will be that, like, the story of us going into the Helium ecosystem, that might be one of the takeaways, and also a new opportunity and a new market for people that are already into solar PV and batteries. I think that's like the energy market. That might be a new takeaway for people. Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, I think one of the things that I love about DePIN, we were just talking about this before we started, it's obviously such a young industry, so many amazing new projects popping up literally on a weekly or a monthly basis. And with every project I look at, it's a new industry basically that I'm constantly learning about. So with SRCFUL, I've really enjoyed digging into the concepts of, virtual power plants, decentralized energy resources, and I'm still trying to grasp it and get my head around it. So hopefully we can simplify some of these concepts on the call as well to help viewers understand what's going on. But I guess let's just dive straight into it. If you could start by telling us a bit about the story of SRCFUL, how it started, journey so far, and I guess where you're heading.
Yeah, we started the company 2.5 years ago, and so we've been working quite some time with the idea. And it's not until now the full team actually goes 100% and pushes forward. So like every founder has now quit their jobs, and daytime jobs are pushing forward. But yes, so to say, 2.5 years since we started, the main idea actually came like as an inspiration from working with the Helium ecosystem, like a Helium IoT mining. That's how we started. The founding team found each other because of Helium, and we deployed 23 or 24 gateways, I think it was 2021, a couple of years ago. And from that, we never, we had a business, we didn't continue scaling that up. We started yet another business on top of this, where we developed a transaction layer for doing the HNT to fiat transaction, which was a little bit tedious in the very beginning. They weren't that obvious for many people to get that working. I guess you know that as well. And from that, we never continued on that journey either, but we got the idea that let's do something that we can use the business model of, like, DePIN wasn't a term at that time, it came later, but use this business model, like incentivize people for building the network as Helium did with IoT network, but for something else. And that something else was energy and solar PV, which we saw that it's already rising. Could we use this model of incentivizing people with renewable energy? That was the base idea. We didn't have a concrete idea on how the business model would work and the demand side, but we started working on that. Let's connect inverters. Let's try to gather the data and integrate them. And on that journey, I would say that now we have a clear path of the business model. The business model is what is called the VPP, it's virtual power plants. There is a clear demand for connecting distributed energy resources. Like you often abbreviate these with DER, like DERs. And that's the demand side. I would say like the equivalent of what is in Helium, which is the data, which is the demand side. But here it's more about control of power when we're talking about virtual power plants. The data is, of course, interesting, but I would say that the control part, when we actually can sell the amount of power control you have for your DER, that's the big market. So that's where we tap into. And this market hasn't been around for too long. It's quite new market. We're talking about a couple of years in Europe when like markets have existed, but they are now booming, I would say, and open for a lot of companies, but you need to be reasonably big. So
amazing. So I mean, it does sound primed for a DePIN, big incumbent, and a decentralized approach is a great way to get a foot in the door amongst massive incumbents without having tens of hundreds of millions of dollars there, and born out of DePIN, which is really nice to hear as well. For our viewers that I guess don't know as much about the energy grid, how it works, perhaps you could expand a little bit more on what the problem is that you're solving, and I guess what the device that we're plugging in, what does it do?
Yeah, we can start with the problem that we're solving. And this is a problem that is, I would say, unknown for most people. Like if you're just a general person living in society, you wouldn't necessarily know about these things. That's because you just take things for granted. Like if you flip your light switch on, you just like think that, oh, of course, I want there to be light. I want power when I need it. And this has always been in the hands of the utility company, the energy company, or the state that owns the grid. Like someone is responsible for keeping the lights on in your house. And I wouldn't say it has been easy, but like the thing here is that we have consumers, which are homeowners, people living in apartments, and then we have these big power plants. They can sort of predict when people wake up in the morning, they will start their coffee maker, they will take a shower, and they have predictions for this. So they are able to ramp up production and ramp down production. They control the power plants, and they sort of tune in the big knob which controls the power. This is the key thing here, is that the power and the consumption needs to always be the same. It's just that simple. And I think this is just a thing that most people don't even think about. Like you're paying your utility bill in kilowatt hours. That is energy. But energy doesn't really matter when we're talking about keeping your lights on. It's power. And now we're into like physics, and not to complicate things, energy is power multiplied by time. So that's, but anyhow, it needs to be in balance. And this has been, say again.
Sorry, 1 second, Fredrik. What happens when there is imbalance and when power?
It will go dark. It's that simple. You will have a blackout, and you don't want that. So this can happen anyhow. I mean, if the power companies, like let's say there is a problem with the power plant, or a big consumer sort of flips on whatever, like industry, and the power plant isn't prepared enough, like things can still happen. But things are in place to plan these things. What is happening now with the power grid, which is the problem also that we're solving, is that we get more and more renewable power. Renewable power means less predictable power. You see this in politics, like these people that are against renewable power. They say that we should have nuclear, we should have whatever fossil fuel, because we can predict it, and actually they have, like, it's sort of true. Like renewable power is less predictable. If you have solar power and there is a cloud passing over your solar panels, yeah, your production will go down, and wind, etc., etc. And that's one thing. Like, yeah, we have less predictability, even though you can predict it pretty well today. So it's not a big problem, I would say. But this is changing. And also, renewable power is creeping out in the nodes of the system. And this is a cool thing, that the power production is getting more and more decentralized. Homeowners are putting up solar panels on their roofs. And every solar panel that is installed on someone homeowner's roof is 1 kilowatt hour less that is produced by the big power plant. Yeah, you could say this is a good thing. Yes, absolutely. People are more in charge of like their own power production. But there is a big but here. Who is then controlling the balance? Because the power production company, the utility company, they have the big knob of controlling, like the grid doesn't like go blackout. But if every homeowner has solar panels on the roof, when they are not controlled by the power company. So that means that the more decentralized power we get, the less the actors that like have the responsibility of keeping the lights on, the less power they have to actually tune that in. So that means that if you have little solar, like if you have just a couple of percentage of like solar penetration in the grid, it doesn't matter. It's still like plenty of space for the power energy companies to control. But if you get the penetration, which is about 20% of the solar power, you have a problem. You will have a blackout in the grid. And so that's the problem we're solving. There's a market for this called demand and response, which essentially means that you can sell the service of giving someone else access to control of your power production or power consumption.
And so when you say, so it becomes a problem if we have a lot of distributed solar panels, and you say it becomes a problem when there's around or over 20% of the electricity. Is that the electricity supplied into the grid system? If that comes from, say, over 20% of that is from distributed, such a system such as solar panels on top of people's roofs?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you need some centralized entity to, let's say, aggregate the distributed energy production resources and in some way control them. And is that the problem that SRCFUL is solving?
Yeah, I would say that the problem that we're solving is the connectivity part. So enable to even be able to control them, like to be able to participate in these markets, you need to have both hardware and software on the inverter or battery or near the inverter or solar panels. So that's, I would say, the problem that we're solving, like the connectivity. Obviously, we are linking the market as well. So SRCFUL will be a service provider into this network. So we will aggregate these resources. So we have many, many small resources. Could be one person living in a house with solar panels, maybe just a few solar panels. Alone, that person will be absolutely too small to participate in these markets. So even if they raise their hands and say that, I would like to participate, no one will listen because, well, who cares about you? You have just a couple of solar panels. But the more you get, the more they get to be together, I would say. So that's the problem that we're solving, connecting these devices. And it's not cost effective to do it. I would say there aren't that many companies that have succeeded in doing this the traditional way, the same way as Helium solved with IoT. I mean, obviously, you could build an IoT network without the DePIN model. I mean, that's the LoRaWAN connectivity and that protocol, that's not a problem. But how do you actually incentivize people for even buying the hardware themselves and installing it and making that available, building the network? So that's what we believe the DePIN model will help. So I would say the small resources. The big resources, the energy companies already are building like these battery parks, big solar farms. They're already on the VPP markets because they are often built by the energy companies on, I would say, grander scale. So we're after the small and many resources.
Yeah, and then just to clarify, so the actual product or the service that will be sold by SRCFUL is the aggregated supply of electricity from, for example, homeowners with solar panels on their roofs. They will. So are those solar panels already connected to the grid, and then you will be controlling how and when power will be supplied to the grid?
Yeah, that's correct. And it's not. And also, we're diving into. I mean, this is. You could simplify things and say that you have solar PV, install a gateway, you get rewards. That's like the simple story. And I would say that story is probably good enough for most people. The same way as if you install a Helium hotspot. how many people do actually understand how the LoRaWAN protocol works, or even care which sensor like receives data? Install this, put an antenna on your roof, you get tokens that is worth something. The same way here. And so the market itself is already out there. You won't be able to participate if no one is linking you to the market with some kind of hardware or software. And you will still continue selling your excess energy, because the control part is more or less like a security, like an insurance for the grid. It's not that someone will turn off your solar panels. It's not that what's happening. It might be that there is an event that the frequency might go too high, and we need a little bit of curtailment before something else is happening in the grid. So like a fast reaction. So it could be seconds at a time. So at your electricity bill, like utility bill, might be 99.9% the same thing that you're selling, excess energy. But you're still getting paid for you're participating in helping the grid when it needs help. That's what you're getting paid for.
And so it actually works both ways. It's, for example, if the grid needs more power supply, you might be able to provide more to the grid. Or if there's, for example, a unexpectedly hot day, which is not cloudy, and there's a large proportion of solar provision into the grid, you might then, as Sourceful, tone down the amount of power supply to the grid to balance.
That's correct. So if you have batteries, you're able to push and pull power from the grid. If you have solar PV, well, you can only curtail or like make it produce less, but not more. I mean, obviously, the sun is giving what it gives. So,
and then who is the ultimate customer who will be buying the services from Sourceful?
Yeah, the customer is, depending on which region or which country, could either be the state that is like the end customer. Like if you look at Sweden, for instance, the grid is owned by the state. So it's the government, like the state actor. But you won't be doing business directly with the state because there is a market, and these are players on the market that work with so-called aggregators. So I would say that the customer is usually an aggregator of controllable resources. And this is more or less how it works in Europe, all over Europe. And we see the same kind of things also in the US. So the customer isn't the homeowner. The homeowner is the one that is getting paid.
Awesome. And so I guess on the same note, who is it who can participate? If viewers are listening and they think this sounds amazing, I have some solar panels on my roof, is that the only requirement, or who can get involved and how?
We start with people with solar panels and batteries. So, and I say start with, because we need to focus on certain technologies. We can't integrate everything at once. But essentially, if you have a solar PV inverter that is compliant, and if you want to know which we are compliant with, check our documentation. If we're not compliant, just reach out in our Discord. And sometimes it's super easy to add an integration. Sometimes it takes a little bit more time. And the same with batteries. So that's the simple answer. It needs to be on your home network. It needs to be able to communicate with your inverter. And the most convenient option is over like your local area network. And then you get token incentives for this. So, and we give token incentives as every DePIN project as a baseline reward for building the network. So if we take the analogy with Helium IoT, you still get rewards, even though there is no data transfer. Even if you might be a lone wolf somewhere, you still get some rewards because you have put the work on building the network. We do the same. So, but then if you participate in the VPP market, that's where I would say the big rewards are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we're still very much in the early phases. How many devices do you have installed at the moment?
We have, I think if we look at Explorer at the moment, there are about 35 devices that are up and live running. I think we should be at 60 or 70. That is probably within a week or two coming, because that's what we have seen been sold in the beta program. Like, we are at the moment in the beta phase, and we will start the next phase in the beta phase will be dual mining. So that will soon to be. I mean, next week or two, we'll start on integrating with Helium. So
awesome. And that was going to be, that's a great segue into the next question. I'd love to talk a little bit about the Helium ecosystem. I guess before we do that, let's just to clarify, if people want to get involved, the best way at the moment, as far as I understood, is if you have a compatible Helium miner, such as the Rack version 2, soon you'll be able to join and use that as a dual miner.
Yeah. So, and that will happen within a week or two for the next batch of the beta phase. So you will get token incentives in the beta phase, and might be significantly more worth than joining in later on, because we want to incentivize people that are actually taking the extra time on dealing with buggy firmware. I think it's quite stable now, but I mean,
it's relatively easy now if you can get a compatible device. Because actually, just to clarify, at the beginning you did just have some off-the-shelf devices which worked off the shelf. Those have sold out, so it's now a case of converting the Helium miners. Is it a pretty quick and easy install once you have a compatible device?
It is. There is a web app that you just onboard your inverter. So I think we already have the application. We have people that are newbies into installing any kind of computer firmware, like hardware, that have managed to do this. So I would say it's pretty straightforward. It's just a Bluetooth connection and a web application. You do it from your phone or your computer. And if you're in the beta phase, it's just a matter of, at the moment, to sort of just flash an SD card, and then you're able to run both the Helium miner and the SRCFUL miner on the same device. And very soon we are going to work and integrating this directly with Rock Wireless firmware. And on the roadmap, hopefully, I would say September, around that time, it will be a push of a button from Rock Wireless to actually push this out. That's the plan, at least.
Amazing. And being able to do the dual mining will be really good. And so we'd love to, we've got maybe 5-10 minutes left. We'd love to dig into the integration with the Helium ecosystem. So we've got a HIP 128 out, which is proposing SRCFUL would become one of the new Helium subDAOs. It would be linked to the HNT token, the SRCFUL token, and you'd be a part of the ecosystem. So how far off voting on that are we? What's the general vibe on that front at the moment?
Yeah, actually, this has been a fun ride. We have been working on the HIP for, I would say, 2 months or so, quite extensively, together with Helium Foundation, I must say. So Helium Foundation is also part of working with the HIP. So both the CEO and the senior technical director is authors of the HIP. So this is like a joint effort. But anyhow, I would say when we released the HIP, it was quite interesting the first couple of days, because many people that are old into the Helium ecosystem, they are not so fond of bringing yet another network into the ecosystem. So it's a little bit of like, why should we do this? It doesn't make sense. We are a wireless network, etc., etc. But my general perception is now that when things have sort of flattened out and we have had these discussions ongoing in the Helium Discord, is that people start to understand. It makes sense. Helium is like evolving into something else than just a wireless network. It's the network of networks. And what we are now essentially doing is that, like, we have wireless, we have IoT, there is mobile, there is energy. And if you look at this from the higher perspective, Helium will be like a network of basic physical infrastructure for modern society. So you need connectivity, you need energy, who knows, whatever network comes next, but all these things make sense in the same ecosystem. And also, it will be very good for the Helium token. I mean, we shouldn't speculate in I would say we should be very careful. But what we are doing is that it will be we'll be linking a new demand side into the Helium ecosystem of a significant size, I would say.
And at the same time as doing that, you will be using the Helium IoT network to transfer data over. So you'll be adding to the DC burn on that front as well.
Exactly. And we will also be utilizing like the LoRaWAN concentrator, like the IoT, the Helium hotspot. That's also a verification of the location, because location is super important now. We can't have people that are like, it needs to be at a verifiable location. So we need to utilize the IoT network also for location data, which I would say Demo and is already doing, and Hive Mapper as well. Like Helium is also a network of, I would say, verification of location. So that's important for us. And essentially now we're using the same ECC chip also in the same miner, which will make sense. And also sensors, as you said. We will need additional energy sensors on top of this to comply with regulatory standards. I know in the UK you need a certified energy meter to participate in the VPP market. So that for some markets you will need additional devices that might be needed to be installed by an electrician. The same applies for whatever VPP service you're providing. Like I say, it doesn't matter. But in this case, yes, we are able to leverage the Helium ecosystem for the IoT part. So the sensor part will be even easier because you already have a gateway connected with a verified position and also driving DC burn on that network.
Yeah. So you're, in fact, you're bringing a new demand side into the Helium ecosystem. You're increasing usage on the IoT network. You are providing an extra layer of anti-spoofing for verification of location. I mean, it sounds like a good thing to me. And did you say it's August that this is looking likely to be voted on?
Yeah, obviously it's the community that sort of have a say on when this is ready for voting or not. But I would say my hope is that we go for this in August, like the voting happens in August. My gut feeling is that it will be like the voting will be. It will be voted in favor of being a network, but obviously nothing is certain. So, but I hope.
Yeah,
so.
Well, fingers crossed on that front. And anyone with HNT, go stake it, get your VEHNT, and go vote on this proposal.
Yeah.
I think it's a super exciting time. That would be absolutely massive for the project as well. So I've got very high hopes for you guys on that front.
Yeah.
So just going back, one more question about the utility of the network, what it is that the ultimate product we're selling. So the virtual power plant model, we can actually help to balance the grid in the way that we've already discussed. Are there any other revenue generation models that you think will be significant, such as maybe the data and analytics side of things, providing data to...
Yeah, we believe that there is a value. We don't know how significant it will be, but the data itself is valuable, the same that we see in other projects. Let's say, take Demo as an example. They are like gathering data from cars, and if you can do this on a larger level, you will be able to tell, I would say, a better story. And the data from inverters and the production is actually not known for the utility companies. So this is like a black hole for them. They have most likely models and a pretty good idea on what is happening, but they don't have the actual data. The same as the same story goes for cars. Like, I think the cities or the government, they might have a pretty good idea on how much cars are driving on the roads, but they don't have the actual data. They don't have the data from the cars. The same goes here. So we believe that this will be valuable. We don't know exactly how much. And then we do have in different regions, there will be also like carbon credits or energy certificates that in some regions are really valuable. I would say in the UK, I think that the price is like 10 pence per kilowatt hour. That's an outlier because in the rest of Europe, we don't have that amount of money. But yeah, that will be a market that we definitely can and will tap into as well.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like, I guess, the distributed energy resource or the domestic virtual power plant model is quite a new one. So I guess more potential markets and demand will evolve as time goes on. Your core model of balancing the grid, do you have an idea of the market size of that one?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because the market is rising really much, but we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar market. I think I need to remember that if this is a future prediction numbers but $6 billion, I think the market is worth today just for the demand and response services. So not talking about energy, selling and buying energy, like the demand and response. And this market is getting more and more valuable the more and more renewable power we get, because this is the control part. So yeah, it's a big market we tap into. And that's, as you already said, not the whole market. There will be other opportunities as soon as you connect the energy resources and start to capture the energy data and being able to control. Yeah, you can do more.
and a growing market. It's exciting times, and I think that's a great place to wrap up. And I've got a couple of just closing questions. One is for the viewers, just to summarize. Obviously, we're super early in this project. Why should people get involved?
I think that you should get involved. Definitely, if you do have PV production or batteries, it's a win for you because you will get incentivized. We will open up a new market for you. That's the very, very easy answer.
And a good answer as well. Yeah. I think that one's clear. And then final closing question. This one may seem a little bit obvious, but really, really interested to get your thoughts on it anyway. Why the DePIN model for SRCFUL?
I believe that this is a very effective model for being able to reach all the small scale resources that are not economically viable if you do it in the traditional way. That's the very short answer. And also, I believe that this is a very good way of actually distributing value to the end nodes of the system. We don't want to build yet another big corporation like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, etc., that actually doesn't reward the end user, in this case, the builder. I believe that the DePIN model and this business model is a way of actually making people actually get rewarded for the work they do when they are building the business. We are building it, but we are building it together with the people. So
fantastic. I think that's a great response. Very Web3, very much in line with the values we have here at Future Network. So no, great answer to the question, and a great interview as well. Fredrik, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for your time. I'm hoping that Future Networks can get quite closely involved and do some work on the deployment side, and really looking forward to seeing the project evolve.
Super. Thank you very much.